All right, everybody. Thanks for showing up for another installment of Plugged In. This week, we're going to discuss why max players aren't taking max money, the new NCAA rules, aka the Rich Paul rule, and Miley Cyrus's separation or divorce from her husband less than a year of marriage, and what does that mean for society at large? So we'll start off first with, I guess, the NBA players. I mean, this free agency has been quite interesting. This last, what has it been, a couple months? Has it been, guys?
Oh
Right.
yeah,
Okay. So a lot of these max players like Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Kawhi Leonard, just to name a few, have been eligible for the super max deal where they can, like, I mean, either way they're getting generational type money, but they're leaving millions of dollars on the table. And I'm curious. Yeah, I guess we're just trying to figure out like why they're not just cashing in and taking the big money. So, any ideas from either of you as to why basically they're playing at a discount?
I really don't know why they're playing at discount. I guess some people say it's championships. That's why KD took less money. I guess people, when they look at how Carmelo Anthony's career ended and how even Stephen A. Smith on the last interview was getting on him, talking about, oh, he took the money rather than trying to go win a championship with LeBron and Dwayne Wade in Miami and certain things of that nature, or going to Chicago Bulls, different things of that nature. I feel like these NBA players are probably pressured to take less money in order to win a championship, and so that's the only reason I could logically think of why they're taking less money. But it does not a smart idea to me. I feel like it's really dumb.
For sure. Okay. All right, I guess why do you think that's dumb? Okay, so in your case, let's say you had that opportunity in Cali to either make, I mean, maybe you can make $50 million more off of that deal
hmm
versus win at least one championship. I mean, which would you take?
I would take the 50 million because you still have a possibility of still winning a championship. Just like KD, when he turned down his super max to leave OKC, OKC had just made a trade where they picked up Victor Oladipo and they had drafted the center that Sabonis.
Okay.
They had drafted Sabonis. So even Colin
Hmm.
Cowherd, after all those trades, he's guaranteed that they were going to win the NBA Finals, and he still left after OKC
Right.
did all that to improve their roster so that he could stay. They're about to give you 35% of their money of their whole salary cap, and they just improved their roster and their team. Gave you another All Star player and drafted really good, and you still left maybe for a guaranteed championship, yeah, but you still had a chance, and people thought that because you were pretty much one shot away from going to the championship the year before, and now you improve your roster, and so people are thinking that you're likely going to take the championship next year. And he still left just for like a guaranteed, even though his chances were still pretty high. But in order to do that, he he lost out on probably way more than 50 million, probably like 50 to 70 million on a supermax he was going to be able to sign. And then if you think about it, it's that's been 3 years ago. So one more year and he would have been eligible for his second supermax contract. And so
Gotcha.
by the next year, he could have been going into his second supermax contract. So two supermax contracts. And when you calculate all that money together, it is probably he's going to be losing out on probably like 100 to 200 million dollars
Right. I can
to
see where you're
super
coming from.
to supermax contract, and I just don't see how you logically uh turn down that type of money.
Right. No, I can see that. I want to circle back to that. I'm curious to know Donald's thoughts on everything. If
Yeah. So I think, I don't know, I think it depends because I think that to some extent, if you're really um, early in your career or you're at a very late end, right? So if you're a young up and comer, for example, What's his name? The dude that just came to Boston.
Hayward, Gordon Hayward.
No,
No, from Charlotte.
Oh, Kimball Walker.
Kemba. So if Kemba had been offered the Supermax in Charlotte and he turned that down to come to Boston, that'd have been really stupid, I think. Right, because then you're leaving a situation where, yeah, you're probably not gonna win, but you're coming to Boston and there are no guarantees here either. And you're the kind of player that's like no one is expecting you to be a champion. I mean, he's a great player, but he doesn't have that weight of championship on him, right? Like a LeBron or KD, or even an Anthony Davis to an extent. But then also, if you're at the late end of your career, like David West, when he had like I think 20 mil from the Pacers, and he turned that down to go to get the veterans minimum in San Antonio of like 2 mil. I think that's stupid too, because I mean, come on, man, like that is
Yeah.
it's a huge gap, right? And I don't know, I think that's illogical. But I also think though that for certain players, like if you're like I think Carmelo's one of them, and I think KD, LeBron, D Wade, all these star players. Because in the end, man, like money is money, honestly. And I know it seems like a lot, but it's just money. Like it comes and goes. Like an extra 50 mil will not make any of their lives better, but being enshrined in history, right? Like to have like a legacy formed, your name. Some fans will always remember that moment you brought them a championship. You're forever a legend in that town. They'll probably put up a statue for you. That stuff never goes away. That's how like you live forever. Like that's the immortality that people want. And in that case, yeah, forget the money. Because you have a chance to do something that because I think like money is a trick, and we're tricked into thinking that like the more of it we get, the better our lives are, or we think we can leave them for our kids. And that's a whole different topic about this whole generational wealth idea that I think is kind of an interesting thing. But in the end, man, it's like life is short, and if you want to live forever, you need to do something that is memorable. And if you're a kind of player of the LeBron, KD, Anthony Davis stature, sometimes you just gotta, you have to take the legacy move and not the money move. And I think the best players end up doing that. Like all the best players, the ones that truly love the game and truly care about their place in the history of the game, will take the fame and the legacy over the money any day.
Okay, that's a good point. So this is what I was thinking. Yeah, so I just piggyback off of what you two have stated already. Yeah, legacy is huge because now when we're gonna think of Carmelo, what are we gonna always think of? Okay, well he couldn't win a championship because of his ego, right? He had a good partner in Jeremy Lin, and then he had him shipped out of town. He basically made the or had the Denver Nuggets mortgage their future to force his way to New York. He had an opportunity to play with the Big Three. He was basically going to be part of the Big Three, but he wanted the money, right? So now we're gonna remember him as the person like that a lot of players didn't get along with, and basically like then we're gonna just remember him in a sense begging to get back on an NBA roster, right? And then I know I saw something that Kelly shared with us where John Wall was the one who's more vocal about players not taking the supermax. But what are we going to remember John Wall for? Yeah,
yeah,
nothing. Go
right.
ahead.
But you
Uh-huh.
probably won't remember him. But I feel like like legacy. I feel like the money is not important to them. It's because
Uh-huh.
what they waste their money on. All right, they go buy another car. It doesn't really do anything for them. They go buy another iced out watch. But with that, you got to think about what that 50 to 100 million he turned down. He could have
Hmm.
formed his legacy outside the NBA as well. Like LeBron, he spent $41 million to send 11,000 kids to college. Like
Hmm.
KD could have doubled that. He could have sent 22,000 kids to college. He could have done all those different things by not turning down the money. So where you make your legacy on the court and off the court as well. A lot of people are like that's one of the things about Michael Jordan that they knock is that he wasn't a social justice. He didn't do anything for people felt for the community. That was one of the big things as well. So I feel like you could form your legacy outside of the court as well with the
Hmm.
money that you make. there's so many different things that you can do. You can build schools, education, even like Chance the Rapper. People talk about the things that he's done in Chicago for the schools as well. When you look at compared to a rapper, so I feel like KD, like he could have done other legacies. One, he still had a chance to win a championship. People like they were in the top three teams of who was going to win a championship, and they got better. And so it wasn't like Golden State beat him really bad. It went to a game 7 and pretty much like to a final shot. He was like one shot away from like going to a championship. And so it wasn't like their future or their dynasty was like over. He still had a chance to go to dynasty. But with that money, he could have also formed his legacy outside of the NBA.
So I think it comes down to happiness, right? Because with KD, he's obviously someone who's looking for happiness, and it seems like all the wrong places. Because at OKC, he was just trying to do it the right way. It seems like, and him and Westbrook were pretty good friends. But the thing is, it just got to a point where he just wasn't happy because the management nor the coaches were telling, I guess, Westbrook to dial it back a bit. So he went to Golden State because they're willing to dial it back and let him be the main man. And then he for a time he was happy there, but then it never really felt like he was welcomed there, if that makes sense. Or he was not really welcomed as much as like he wasn't really part of the core group. So he was just like a mercenary in a sense. He was just there to get some more championships and be out. And then that's why he really. It doesn't sound like he has any bad taste in his mouth with Golden State, but as much as it does not really any love lost there, if you will, right? And now he's going to Brooklyn, where I mean it's debatable whether or not they're going to win a championship, but it's one of those things where he's like still looking for something, but he can't seem to find it. So I think ultimately it's like I mean like I think it was Donald who mentioned this, but the media tells us that more money you're going to, or the more money or more things you have, you're going to be happier, but ultimately everybody has their different values. And yeah, like you were saying, Kelly, you could send kids off to school and such. But I think when you win championships, it's almost in a sense like you're for the common person, like having a master's or a PhD attached to your name and makes you that much more reputable as opposed to, yeah, this guy's a scoring champion, a rebound champion. But when you have the championship tied to your name, it just gives you that much more credentials. You're a lot more, you receive much more endorsements off the court or off the field. So I think that's why, and I think a lot of times these players, they're used to winning at the AAU level, high school level, maybe even collegiate level. Then they get to NBA and they find, man, I can't do it on my own. So I want to get a team around me. And if I take up all of the cap space, then I have no one to blame but myself. So they want a lot of KD. He wants to play with his friend and Kyrie, and a lot of these players are playing with guys who they played with way back in like was it Anthony Davis? He looked up to LeBron when he was younger, and now he gets to play with an idol of his, right? Or you could just be the one man shop. But I mean, what team can you think of that's won a championship with just one guy being the superstar, and then there's just like a lot of scrub players? Not even Kobe did it. A lot of people like to say Kobe did it, but like he had like legit players on his team when he won after Shaq left.
After Shaq left, yeah, that's important because when Shaq
Right.
was there, Shaq won it. Shaq won it all.
Oh, most definitely. Go ahead.
I do think too that like the reason why championships are important is because only a few people win those, right? And I'm talking about like the main drivers, right? Because yeah, if you're the 15 man on the team that won a championship, yeah, you won it too. But like I'm talking about like what we're talking about, because the Celtics have like 18 championships, the Lakers have 17, and then you have like other teams that have a couple here, a couple there.
You said that, Donna.
Sorry, I think I just yeah. Uh, Other teams have a couple here and a couple there, but it's not a lot of people don't win championships, right? It's a hard thing to do, and usually like good teams become good and they win a few, right? So it's like it's never really like bouncing off like a lot. It's not like every other year some other team can win, and it's not like the NFL either, where other than the Patriots, it seems like some team can rise up almost every year and have a good chance, depending on how things go that year. In basketball, it's pretty much that. The good teams will, pretty much run through everybody and win. So I think trying to get a championship if you're in a good position to do that is definitely so much more worth it. Because again, you're doing something that only a few people can do, and yeah, and your name goes on there forever.
For sure. Well, I mean, I'm just thinking of like some of the more reputable people who've, I don't want to say, like who've never won a championship. I remember thinking like Charles Barkley, Allen Iverson, Karl Malone, John Stockton, but these people aren't hurting for opportunities, right? I mean, they've left like lasting legacies just because they've, I mean, played the right, quote unquote, right way. But just think of how, I mean, like how we hold things against it, these players, because I was like, oh, well, they never won a championship, and I think
So not even
that,
like
go ahead.
even compare. I mean, think about like Karl Malone, all those guys against like a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, right? Like, I mean, Kareem is a pretty big deal. But even like the second rendition of the Bad Boy Pistons, or even like the first rendition with Isaiah Thomas, like those guys just seem to have a different aura around them. Right? You can say that any of the other players might have been individually very great players, but you'll probably still pick Isaiah Thomas over like I don't know. I will definitely pick Isaiah Thomas over Allen Iverson. Right, just because yeah, Iverson was a cool guy, like really fancy, but he wasn't a winner.
But I
And
think
I
Iverson fan base though is definitely bigger than Isaiah Thomas.
well, yeah, I think, but that's probably because Isaiah came. I mean that's like the '80s. Uh, so we don't know how like it's hard to compare because like the time and the kind of cultural impact that Allen Iverson had, Isaiah Thomas definitely didn't have that cultural impact. So I definitely agree with you there. That I mean, there's no way they can compare like the cultural. I mean, I think Iverson completely changed the game for a generation of kids, including myself, who came up during that time. But uh, if you're talking just pure basketball, I think most people will pick Isaiah Thomas over Allen Iverson. I mean, I don't know if you guys agree or not, but
I
I,
would agree with that. Just because Isaiah Thompson, plus he never won an MVP. But I don't know Isaiah Thompson is definitely one of the greats. But compared to Iverson, uh, that would probably be. I think most people would take Iverson
that's a
just
good
because of
point.
his impact on his impact on the game. But
I think on the court I'd take Thomas just because he played both sides and like he did it really well. Like, and the thing is like it's hard in the generation that what's his name Thomas played in because you had Jordan, you had I'm trying to think
right?
who else.
Jordan, Magic, uh,
Bird,
even
yeah.
Larry Bird.
Yeah, Barkley. Yeah, a lot of guys. I mean, and not to say that Iverson's generation was any. I wouldn't say easier, but like I mean, there are some guys, right? I mean, Kobe was still young at the time, right? But then you had like guys like Shaq. I think Jordan was at the tail end, so you can't really say Jordan.
Tim
But yeah,
Duncan,
like there were. What was that?
Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett.
Yeah, David Johnson, even, or what was it? David, not David Johnson. What's his name? The guy who played for the Spurs as well, but he was
Robinson.
on his last legs. David Robinson. Okay.
they
Yeah, I
were
mean, there's
Tim Duncan was like winning championships too. By
Yeah,
then,
yeah.
Tim Duncan was winning like league MVPs, final MVPs at that time.
hmm So I think the biggest thing in this case, like as far as like how this relates to the average person, because I think many of us have opportunities to go to a smaller firm, take a bigger piece of the pie. But the thing is, after a while, it's like, man, then you have to wear all these different hats, and it's then you're pretty miserable, right? So then it's like, what? So now why don't you go to a more reputable firm, maybe make less of the pie, but you're having a better time, right? A better experience. You're not like bringing work home with you because then you're able to work with some friends, or maybe you're just able to focus on what you do best as opposed to being stressed in all different types of directions. And I think, I mean, obviously with us, we're not like really championships or getting anything noteworthy, but at the end of the day, we're able to focus on matters that are more important, maybe even outside of work. We're that much more happy. But I think a lot of times with these athletes, they're finding that okay, yeah, I can make a ton of money, but to Donna's point, like another 10, 50, 20, or 100 mil isn't going to make a difference because then I really want something that's more important than that. Like Kevin, I mean, not Kevin, but Kawhi Leonard, he's a different dude. I'll take that. But at the end of the day, he's just like, man, I just want to be home to be able to see my family grow up, and I think to that effect, having to be out on the road and not being able to see them, it takes a toll on them. And then for us, same thing, right? I mean, again, I mean, everybody has their respective careers, but I think a lot of us can, I guess, empathize with that to a sense. So I think you just give up a piece of your pride by taking less money, but at the end of the day, I mean, as long as you're able to put food on the table and provide for your loved ones and family, then I think that's
Yeah.
the biggest thing, right? So go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking like one of the things like they fought for like the Supermax, so it's like
Yeah,
it's kind of crazy that they fought for the money, but now they
right.
don't want it. Majority of them don't want it.
Yeah, a lot of them don't. Yeah, I mean,
No, I
yeah,
do
not a
think
lot of them taking it. Go ahead.
no, I think it's crazy because I don't think it should be an automatic thing, right? I don't think every player should be getting offered a supermax and just turn it down because I think that's dumb. You really like that is it's crazy because only a few players on a few teams can really have a real impact, and it's really dumb to give up, you know, something that is valuable or something that could potentially be valuable if like there isn't really any real evidence that you'll get a value. Right? So if someone like, Anthony Davis, leaving um, New Orleans to go play with LeBron. Yeah, he left the Supermax, but he's also playing with LeBron James. So, you can make that bet any day. Kawhi leaving San Antonio, forcing his way out, that was dangerous. And I thought that was a dumb idea because he got kicked to Toronto. Lucky for him, because they were a good team, and he won a championship there. But I don't think, I agree with Kevin on that one. It's kind of crazy that people act like this is not important. I think, the money is definitely important. If you're in a position to do something that's greater, then you can, but not everyone is in that position. Most people actually are not. And so they should just take the money and sit down and be happy.
That's what I'm saying.
For sure, for sure. Okay, sweet. Well, anything else before we moved on to the next topic?
Well, one little last thing is that Zion turned. I feel like Zion turning down that shoe deal from Puma for $133 million for $75 from Jordan. Like before you even made he even played like a second in NBA, he could have like cashed out of like $180 million guaranteed when he look at his NBA contract and his shoe deal, but he took like less money. But I just think that's crazy because you don't even know how secure your future is in the NBA or basketball.
I feel like that one though, that one tells a story of brand, right? Because I can see how he's like, I mean, that's how I think. Like, I mean, I know Jordan brand. I know what they've done with Russell, right? I know what they did with Kawhi before he left. Puma is up and coming.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to get a foothold. Um, you can, I can take the risk with Puma and see if it pays out, or I can just go with an established brand. And if Puma is, he's kind of making the money and bet on himself at the same time. Because if he's still good when this contract runs out, he can sign with Puma and take the money still.
No, I
So
think
I
it's like.
think
Go ahead.
no, you can.
No, I kind of think it's the opposite because if you look at it, like I feel like he's not gambling on himself because I feel like if you're gambling on yourself, you would have been like, okay, I really want Jordan, but they're not offering me the money I want, so I'm gonna ball out on Puma for these 7 years, and then after that, I'll switch over to Jordan because that's what a lot of people did. They switched companies, like Kobe switched companies, Kawhi Leonard switched companies after their original 7 years, and they went to a company that they wanted to. So there's a lot of players that switch after their first 7 years and they go to the company they want to. I feel like Zion should have took the money up front because you don't know. You take the money up front, and then if you ball out, then Jordan's gonna definitely and Nike's gonna definitely want to sign you, but they're gonna pay you what you're worth. So you would have been making what you're worth the whole time. And it's not like your career is over if you sign for Puma for 7 years and then go to Jordan for your last 13 years of your NBA career.
No, that's a good point. I think you're right. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. The only thing is, what if he was worried about the quality of the shoe? Maybe that was it. Because I don't know. I think about Puma, And I'm like, I don't know. It's just, because they're new to the scene.
Right.
Um, but you're right. Like, and I mean, Zion is Zion. He's gonna be great no matter what shoes he wears, unless
Right.
I get worried about that. But I can see maybe, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe it's just brand identity. Maybe he just went with a brand he knows instead of taking the risk with the new kid on the block.
Yeah. Well, some people think it's like the whole like conspiracy thing about like these shoe companies are already giving them money. Like every player that goes to Duke signs
Uh,
with Nike and Jordan. Every player that goes to Kansas signs with Adidas and so forth. And so a lot of people think that these players are
before
already
he
getting money from these companies before. So like they already kind of locked into signing with these people by the time they get to the NBA.
But then you're really not though. Like, what are you gonna say? I mean, because if Zion refuses to sign, what are they gonna be like? Hey, we paid you money before. You can't say that.
That's true.
Yeah, you expose yourself. That's like bribery stuff. So it's like, yeah. So just real quick, I think what Clay Thompson, with the um, small shoe company in China,
Right.
I think that was pretty impressive. That's like that was a very cold, calculated, no thrills business move. Like a shoe
Can
that
you
no
can
one
you
knows.
expound on that a little bit? Because I
Well, so
think
he,
D-Wade did something similar.
yeah, but so I think the name is Atna. Hold on, yeah, but I think he signed with them. It was a pretty sizable contract. I think he got some ownership as well, in the company, and they're like super like random shoes. I mean, they barely sell in the U.S. if they sell here, right? It's like this big Chinese brand, and it was again a very calculated move, right? It was like he's not gonna be on any cool shoe commercials in the United States. It's not one of the big name brand sports sports brand. But he makes a lot of money from it, and it doesn't change how he plays basketball. So it's kind of the decision that you would think most people will make, right? Like you literally, like Kelly was saying, you go with a company that gives you more money because probably the quality of shoe will still be the same.
Yeah.
But most of us make all these like subconscious emotional decisions, and so people end up signing with like a shoe company that they looked up to as a child instead of the shoe company that would just give them the most money. When in these cases, you should probably just do that. So it doesn't really change much for you. Like I don't think Clay Thompson's value went down because he's with a
Right.
small, yeah, shoemaker.
For sure. Yeah, I think we should wrap this up. But I think I just wanted to end with I bought some New Balances about a month or two ago after Kawhi brought balance back to the NBA with him knocking the Golden State off, and I got it for half. What it's like basically the equivalent of the Nike Freeze or the Adidas. I think what the Adidas ones, Adidas Boost or Ultra Boost, I think is what they're called, because those run for like 180, 200, somewhere in that range, and I got these for like $70. So the point I guess I bring this up because we can do the same thing in that we could take a discount on certain brands that we buy, but the thing is we're just so enamored with get Nike or Jordan, or maybe maybe you're in a different class and you're thinking like, oh, I need to get Gucci or Prada or something to that effect. So with Zion going with Jordan, there's like a sure thing there. Like he's something he's comfortable with, I guess, in a sense. There's just the notoriety there. But if he really wants, I mean, just my opinion. If he wants to bet on himself, I don't think I'm with Kelly in that. You just go with Puma and just ball out with them, and then obviously then the bidding war goes from there, and then people are just dropping money on you like crazy if you wanted to, or you could just stay with Puma and just be a part of, you're basically going to be the face of that brand, right? Because right now I think the biggest names on there, at least from what I can recall, were DeAndre Ayton and what's his name,
There's Danny Green.
Marvin Bagley. Was
There's
that
Danny Green.
Danny Green? I mean, is he a big name?
Yeah,
DeMarcus Cousins. I mean, he was on a
Mark's
team.
cousin.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
it's
a good
on there
point.
too.
So I
But
think initially, go
yeah.
ahead.
No, so also if you look at like Zion, I felt like Puma would have been a better a play because if you saw what Steph Curry did with Under Armour, like all
Right.
these kids in this generation are wearing Under Armour Steph Curry shoes.
right? He's the face of Under Armour, right? And then the same thing with baseball. Bryce Harper is the face of Under Armour yeah, for baseball. And I
And then
think that's the
Cam
one that
Newton is the football face.
Tom Brady or Cam Newton. Yeah, I mean, I think Cam Newton was for a little bit, but then that was like for 2, 3 years, like during his MVP run. But like, I
Right.
think it's more so Tom Brady. I mean, anyways, it's interchangeable, right? Either way, both of them are like super good, right? But
Right.
either way, yeah, no, I agree. So I think he had a chance to be the face because with Jordan, who's going to be the face of Jordan? Jordan. It's like nobody else
Right.
could be. I mean, there's Blake Griffin, there's Chris Paul, Melo, and Zion, but like nobody can really say they're the face of Jordan. Jordan will always be the face of Jordan. Yeah, he missed out on that opportunity and money, right? Like it's just $60 million. I remember when KD was drafted back in '07, and he gave up. I want to say it was somewhere between 20 to 50 million, where he could have gone with Adidas as opposed to Nike. But it was just like one of those things where it's like, oh, I just feel comfortable with Nike and everything, and it's like, it's a shoe. It's like there's like really no difference. Like I don't really feel like there's any shoes. Like once you get to that level, like that's making like a less than ideal shoe. I mean, if anything, Nike, that was a shoe he blew up when he was playing against UNC,
Right.
right? So I mean, it could happen to any of them, to be honest. I mean, I'm not advocating them to rock some Payless shoes. I mean, Payless is out of business, I guess. But anyways, I guess you guys get where I'm coming from,
Yeah,
right?
and
I
the
think,
case on too
uh-huh.
is Anta, by the way.
What was one more time?
Anta, ANTA, there's a brand.
Is it? Oh yeah, for
For Clay
and
Thompson.
and he plays in them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so and he's never had any issues with him. I mean, he doesn't really do anything, right? He's just a spot up shooter. He doesn't. I mean, but he plays defense, and the kind of defense this guy plays, his shoes are bound to rip if they're just like some cheaper, made in China sort of thing. So I mean, I don't know, man. I think ultimately, if you're gonna bank on yourself and leave a legacy and make an impact for long term, then yeah, you just bank on yourself and do something to that effect, right? As opposed to one of my favorite commercials was an Adidas commercial way back like maybe maybe within 5 years ago, when it just showed these clones of athletes. They all looked alike, and then you just saw this one athlete that had Adidas on, because like everybody was Nike, everybody, right?
Right.
It's just like just branch out, do something different, and I'm trying to do something different with the New Balance. Not really. I mean, there's just something, but I mean, but at the same time, like just try to rock something different. Maybe put a little bit of more money in your pockets, and the fact that you're not spending as much, then it goes a long way. But well, yeah, I mean, we've spent a lot of time on this topic, so we'll just move on. And I think I want to segue into this based off of what Donna was talking about with the maybe a lot of these players were, or I don't know if it was either you or Kelly, but I think it was Donna. Anyways, doesn't matter. But one of you mentioned how they go to these certain schools, and then they're saying like, well, I went to the school and I guess I have to sign with that outfitter, right? So maybe in a way they were being funneled money, and now they feel entitled to sign with a certain company. So there's this new rule that the NCAA has established as it pertains to sports agents, which LeBron has dubbed the Rich Paul rule, and that's really gained some steam or gained some legs. And I'm curious to know what you two were your initial thoughts were. So for those of you who aren't familiar, before I guess anybody could have been a quote unquote sports agent, but now you have to at least have a bachelor's degree. You've had to have at least 3 years of work experience in that field. And what was the other one? I should have made
You
notes
gotta take
here.
the test. You gotta
Oh
pass
yeah,
the test. You need a bachelor's degree, 3 years of being approved by the NBA Players Association,
was it
and
NBA or the NCAA?
no, but you gotta be by the NBA. There's and the
Mm,
NCAA, and you
got
have
it.
to cooperate if you're for any investigation, even if you're not being investigated, someone else
Mm.
is. You have to cooperate and give information. So you pretty much got to snitch if you know anything about anything. But yeah, there's a bunch of different rules.
Right, right. Okay. Yeah, so I mean, what were your initial thoughts on this? Is when you two heard about it.
I thought it was dumb. Like, cause one, the NCAA, they're trying to control what a player does after he leaves their school,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt like it was dumb because one, this new rule only applies to basketball players. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
football players, soccer players, wrestling players. They said they're trying to protect the student athlete, but why did you
Mm-hmm.
only get for basketball players?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
that's weird. That's interesting. Like, wait, so So it seems like the rule is saying that while the student is like while the athlete is still a student, then the agent has to meet this criteria, right? But
Right.
then can the student just go? So can students? So I don't know. Can students declare for the draft without an agent?
They can.
They can. Yes.
But it's just not wise, I guess.
Well, it's not
No.
because your agent automatically. So what they want to stop is like the agent making deals before like you. Well, they so one of the things like Rich Paul, got that player to go and do an internship with Under Armour. I forgot what it was, and he got paid
New
$1 million.
Balance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
rather than going to NCAA. And so when these players, they're hiring agents before they even go to college. And so what the NCAA is saying that if you hire an agent before you go to college, we're pretty much you're gonna be like you're not gonna be able to go to college at all. Whether it's before people were hiring agents and agents were able to try to go out and negotiate a deal, and if they couldn't go to deal, they'll send the kid to college.
I see. Wait, but okay. But I guess like are people mad because of the whole bachelor's degree portion? Because Rich Paul doesn't have one.
Well, because Rich Paul doesn't have one, and Kawhi Leonard's uncles supposedly don't have one. So it's all like pretty much people saying it's racist because now you have these black athletes being represented by their family members and these black people that they're friends rather than some old rich white guy. And
Uh,
so they're saying that these rules are now racist. Some people are saying they're racist uh, because like they're trying to control.
yeah, what the players do. But I feel like it's interesting because I guess an unintended consequence could be that the players could sign with a random agency, whatever, just to get through the first phase of their journey, and then just like fire the agents and just sign with their family. Like, I feel like that's probably what might end up happening. That's a way to
That
get
was
around the
risky
rule.
because that's what Zion did, and he's like fighting over like his rights to his NBA contract right now.
Or because he fired his agent.
Yeah, he fired his agent right before he went to the draft. So he had an agent during college, and he fired him right before the draft. But the agent is saying that the contract stated that he would be his agent and that he was working out stuff before, I guess, whatever. I don't know the exact details. But yeah,
Yeah,
they're suing him over a percentage of his NBA contract and all his endorsement deals that he's gotten so far.
'cause I think what could happen, and because in the end, like all these, the sad thing, and I think it's interesting what Chris Broussard said, because the sad thing about all these players, right, is that like we complain about the NCAA all the time, but they really have no power that the students don't give them.
Right.
Like the problem that we all buy into the system, especially the athletes. And the more we buy into it, the more power these guys get when they really have no power. If if these like big time student athletes refuse to sign long term contracts with agents, they can sign short term contracts. Right? Because in the end, if you really want LeBron, you do whatever it takes to get, to sign LeBron. And I'm hearing an echo right now.
Yeah, it just stopped, so you can keep going.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, you can do whatever you want to sign LeBron. So I think this is the biggest tragedy with all this. The NCAA really has no real power. Um, the only power they have is the power that the students give them because they continue to go to these colleges and continue to want to play with them.
Hmm.
And they allow when all it takes is like a couple years, 1 or 2 years where the best players refuse to go. That's all, and they'll sing a different tune. It might not even take the whole year. Even if the players threaten to not go to school that year, just like that, because the NCAA makes money off the players. If the players refuse, they make no money, and like that, it affects their pockets directly. Those guys, those random old guys, aren't getting their $1 million salaries. right? Like nothing's happening on that level. So to me, it's like, yeah, like we can call the rule racist and complain about it, but in the end, the people that really have the power to change this need to feel empowered to change it. And somehow, it seems like we're all afraid.
Yeah, it definitely does seem like that. They do have the power to change it. Even like when you look at LeVar Ball, how crazy he is. Like ESPN is broadcasting one of Lamelo's game in Australia this year. So like we definitely do have the power. If you go play somewhere else, like the media is gonna follow you, especially if you're a big star. Like if Zion went and played somewhere else, the media would have followed him because he already
Yep.
created a cult following. Especially nowadays with like Instagram and social media, like in high school, you can create a cult following. Like that kid who just crossed over Steph Curry one time, and now so many articles are being written about him. Like that's all he had to do was just one little crossover and dunk, and now everybody's talking about him. And so like definitely like it is we are giving NCAA so much power, but these for some reason it's hard to break a system. It seems like these kids, I don't know who they're getting advice from, but it's hard for them to break the system.
Because
So I'll push
easy.
back with this though,
Yeah.
because the thing is, like, even with the guy who crossed over Curry, like, if he goes to Northwest Missouri State, we're not watching them. So the thing is, with Zion, like, it sounds good that, like, yeah, we would have followed him wherever he went. But if he went to Clemson, like a lot of people thought he was initially going to, because he's from South Carolina, Clemson isn't on TV every week. But the thing is,
It
the
would
brand, what was that?
it would be. Like if Zion is there, Clemson will be on TV every week. Like
Well,
when
no,
like
go ahead.
people hadn't heard of BYU till Jimmer played, and then BYU was everywhere,
Mhm.
right? Like I think, which is why I was also very disappointed. I mean, I think about Ben Simmons. Some people had never watched an LSU game till Ben Simmons chose to go to LSU.
Right.
Then all of a sudden, like I've seen a bunch of LSU games on TV. So I
Right.
yeah, so I think the problem is like, which is why I'm disappointed that like Moody isn't doing as well as I was hoping he would do, because that would have been
Hmm.
a great case study for someone that refused to go to college.
Right.
Yeah, but sorry, go ahead, Jeff. I just
No, well, and I was thinking again, yeah. I mean, because the thing is, I mean, going back to our previous topic with taking a chance on yourself and going with a lesser known brand, but I mean, obviously getting the payoff in the long run, both monetarily and from a legacy standpoint, like is like unmeasurable, at least at the time. But I was thinking, like, just like what Cruz Broussard said, with a lot of these top tier athletes would go to HBCs or lesser known colleges, they're going to be immortalized, right? Yeah, Zion, like, yeah, he's a huge name now, but he's like a one and done. And like, who knows if he's going to be immortalized at Duke because he didn't win a championship. He didn't even make it to the Final Four. You
yeah.
get what I'm saying? So the thing is, that's the issue we run into because like we have a lot of these one and dones, but like unless you win a championship, it doesn't really make a difference. Anthony Davis won a championship, and he's like a one and done player. But for the most part, like even to this day, like a lot of I mean, these schools that are winning are with players that have been there 2+ years. You get what I'm saying? So the thing is, like, it's unfortunate because now it's like and I think that's why college basketball is like one of those things that's one of those sports that's hurting the most with the one and done. Well, I mean, it's obviously it's the only one that's going through the one and done, I guess. But it's hurting the most with the one and done is because like every single year you never know who's on a certain team. Whereas back in the day, these players would play like at least 2 years, maybe three. But like now it's just like a revolving door player, so you don't even know who's on the team and you don't really care. Like next year, I don't even know who's playing for Duke, right? I mean, I don't know who's playing for Kansas. So it's like it's more now college basketball has been reserved or I guess resorted to just a 1 month sport. We only care about March Madness, right?
But then
Or
it's still
go ahead.
a bunch of money, right? Because like, yeah, Michigan or Villanova or these teams that have like players that stay forever, like
Hmm.
no one really cares about them, man. Like no one, like you couldn't name five players that were on Villanova's team last year, or
We
even
can't
the
name
year they
one.
won. Yeah,
Yeah.
or the year they
Mhm.
won the championship, right? Or even like with Michigan. So and Virginia won this year. I barely know the players that won Virginia. So I
I don't
think
know
that
one.
like,
Yeah.
so I think like in the end, again, and that's the hypocrisy of the NCAA, right? It's all about making money. and one
Uh-huh.
and done players who are great, making them a lot of money.
Right.
And I think a lot of these players are just honestly, I think it's just laziness. Like
Mm-hmm.
the NCAA route is so easy and so clean, so clear cut. There's no risk, right? You go to college, you do your 1 year, you're on TV, right? You're in the system, right there. You know, you have your ESPN college news team that follows you and tracks you. You're on the polls. You know, you get all this exposure. You make no money, you make other people money, but it's a safer route to go through.
Mm-hmm.
And kids are not willing to like, you know, like and this is the problem with some of these issues that face us as people, is that like no one is willing to be the one that sacrifices, right? Like these players are not willing to be the ones that take the risk, right? To put themselves out there and say, hey, we're not going to allow the system to continue.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
So I'm gonna play devil's advocate with the. I think I'm on the NCAA side because here's what's happening. You're having. I think the issue here. Do you are you two familiar with Christian Dawkins?
No.
Don, are you familiar with him at all?
the name sounds familiar. Do you want to refresh my memory?
So yeah, so basically for those who aren't familiar, Christian Dawkins was the one who was like behind a lot of what went transpired. Like I think it was last year with a lot of teams being sanctioned for playing players like DeAndre Ayton. Who's the other guy for NC State? Dennis Smith Jr. I think is his name. He played for NC State. So a lot of these players that were getting paid under the table. So what would happen is but the person or the agency that was paying them, they were basically doing like an under the table sort of handshake that they would go with that agency after it's all said and done, and the school would approve of it in a sense, right? So I think, and then it was Christian Wilkins or Christian Dawkins rather. He didn't have like a background, like he didn't have like years of experience with like working as a sports agent, nor did he and he used the excuse that he didn't know that that was against the rules. So the thing is, like with NCAA, they're saying, okay, well, we're making sure that you pass this certain test or procedure so that you don't use that, oh, I didn't know excuse, because either way you're going to jail, and we don't want to hear any flack about it, sort of thing, right? At least 3 years of work experience, I think that makes sense. I think a lot of us, most if not all of us, know someone who's like, hey, I'm in this credit repair business, or hey, I can do your life insurance. Or hey, like this, like the pyramid scheme sort of thing. And it's like they don't have any type of experience, but you want to help them out, and then it ends up burning you, right? And I think that's what's happening with a lot of these athletes. They're getting bad advice from people who are like who couldn't make it as an athlete, so now they're just saying, "Oh, I'm an agent now." Right? What happened with Derrick Rose's situation? Do you guys remember he was represented by his brother? But then like his brother didn't know anything, and then he like messed up on his deals, and then he had to fire his own brother. Right? But his brother was like trying to use Derrick Rose as a launching pad so he can get more agents. And I think that's what the NCAA, because the thing is like who's getting hurt the most by all of this? Black athletes, right? So then you're gonna all of a sudden now your uncle is a sports agent. And it's like, oh yeah, I did something where I did University of Phoenix. I'm good. Or I just like watched some YouTube videos. I'm good. So I think in a sense, like it makes sense, at least for me, from my perspective, that you have someone who knows what they're doing. So that way, because for example, if you tell, let's say I'm all of a sudden want to represent my nephew who's good at basketball, and I tell him like, yeah, man, hey, you did really good for you NC State. You should just declare for the draft. I think you're going to be a first round pick. What happens a lot is like when they're not a first round pick and they end up as a second round or don't even get drafted at all, you lose millions of dollars. And at that point, after the draft, the NCAA has been a little bit more lenient. Like after you hire an agent, you can return and play. But before it was like once you hired an agent, you're done. But if once you're drafted, you don't have that opportunity. Once you're drafted, you have to go that route. Like even if you're undrafted, you're done. You can't go back to the NCAA. So I think it's like protecting these athletes from getting bad advice from people who don't have the slightest idea of what they're talking about.
Well, that's the thing is that their rules don't really help like the athlete. Like you can meet all the requirements and
Hmm.
still know nothing about the business because you can have any degree, but you just need a bachelor's. Like you can have a degree in agriculture or
Right.
psychology or political science or something English or art literature. You could be an art
Hmm.
literature bachelor and you could still represent them. So it's not like they created like rules and stipulations that make sure the agent knows what they're doing. They just created rules that make it more difficult to be an agent.
So I mean, what's the 3 years work experience though? I mean, and I get that. Yeah, maybe the
It's
degree thing.
years being
Go ahead.
certified by the NBA, the NBA organization or whatever, and the
Hmm.
NCAA organization.
Hmm. Well, and I think like with the bachelor's degree, I think it's not an end all be all, but I think it's one of those things where when someone has at least a bachelor's degree, you get a feeling that they know some kind of general knowledge of what they're talking about. Yeah, sure, like an artsy one, maybe not so much. Um, but yeah, I mean, but I think so. For example, like I know with the NFL PA, they require that the agents are they have at least a master's, right? But nobody's crying about the NFL and saying like, oh, they're racist, right? But I think that they just want to make sure that the person who's reading over these documents and such are making sure that the athletes are protected.
Right, but that's the NFL. That's like your employer having a requirement. The NCAA is
Hmm.
not an employer.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and I think, and again, my point is, I think they're just trying to make sure you don't have like all these AAU guys and like fly by night guys that's come in and gas some of these players up, say, yeah, yeah, you'll make it to the NBA. Let me represent you, and we're gonna. I think you're gonna be a first round pick, and then all of a sudden they don't get drafted, let alone be a late draft pick, and then now they have nowhere to go. Now they have to go to the G League where maybe they wanted to do another year or two to develop their game, but they legitimately cannot because of how the rules are set up, at least at this point. So, I mean, I think I'm in the NCAA's corner in that case because you don't want these athletes being exploited. But again, you could also say that they're being exploited by the NCAA because they're making a profit off of these athletes' likeness. But I think that's a discussion we can dive into more some other time. But
Well, I think
yeah,
that's a good point in terms of you know it's because the idea that the NCAA is trying to protect the students, that's a good one. It's just hard to prove with an organization that seems inherently exploitative, right? It just seems like they just it's like they exist because they exploit athletes,
yeah,
and, and then they make money off them. But I do agree with your point, Jeff, because yeah, we're able to see Rich Paul, who again, like I've said many times, when your client is LeBron, it's kind of hard to fail. Um,
right.
and it's we've also seen Kawhi's uncle. Uh, again, it's not we yet to see how good he really is, right? I think Kawhi's first test is with the team he actually chose, which is the Clippers,
Hmm.
right? He chose the team himself. So now we'll actually see how good this whole thing ended up. Um, it's just hard, I think, because I completely understand and I completely see it. And actually, I think black athletes more specifically, are hurt by all these random family members who come out of nowhere and are all instantly qualified to be agents and managers and um, accountants or whatever, other business rep they need, right? And I think it's hard because we're a lot of, black uh, people in America are kind of raised in this culture that if we're all kind of down, then we should all come up together. So that's kind of hard to say no to your brother or your uncle or whoever who wants to be part of your entourage or your like your company or your like your business. Even though I think you should just say no because they weren't with you shooting the gym. But and they will be the most affected by this, right? Where like we can see two examples of people who really had no background in the business who have succeeded. But for these two that I've mentioned, there are probably quite a bit who led a ton of kids down the wrong path, right? And who will never hear about those things that didn't work out, or so I can definitely see the idea of not just having anybody do this, but it just seems also. that like the NCAA again is trying to control the students even more, right? And
Right.
yeah, and and it's hard to kind of just like ignore that again because they just seem like an inherently exploitative organization, right? That they just
Hmm.
that they exist to make money off athletes
Hmm.
who cannot make money off their own likeness.
Well, man, that's the topic. I really want to go into that because I'm actually in the corner of the NCAA again on that. Maybe it's just I like to be on the opposite end or opposite tide or trend or whatever. But I think that's a really good discussion to discuss, like whether the NCAA is in the right in not allowing the players to be make some sort of profit. Um, I actually just want the players to be paid so I can play NCAA basketball. Not NCAA basketball, but I could play NCAA football video games again. That's like the
No,
only time I play video games. Was
can you
that?
give a quick summary of why you think that the NCAA is right in that instance?
So, for example, at least not an athlete, but a student brings a lot of notoriety to their institution by doing
Yeah,
research for them. Obviously, it's more from an academic standpoint, but they bring a lot of notoriety with the research that they do, but they don't get
yeah.
paid for it, right? So, and then with the athletes, sure,
Well,
they bring some. Go ahead.
PhD students get paid.
Well, I mean, but there's other instances where if you're the like, if you're man, I really don't want to go down this black hole because I feel like we should wrap this up. But I think we could dive into this more. But I mean,
Yeah,
that's just one of my
I agree. I
points,
agree. Okay.
right?
Okay.
But that's
Yeah.
that's just
I
one of
agree.
my points. But among many. But yeah, I think we could definitely dive into it and see what the viewers think. But anyways, so if nothing else, let's just jump into the capstone of our of our discussion or our episode, which is Miley Cyrus separating from her husband of less than a year. Liam, I want to say it's Liam Hemsworth. I could be completely wrong, but basically she's getting separated. So I'm of the opinion that if Miley Cyrus can't make her marriage work, we have no chance. So am I wrong in this assessment, or I mean, what were you guys thinking when you heard this news?
I think we can wrap this up in 2 minutes. That's how quick this Miley Cyrus thing is. Uh, 2 minutes top.
Go for
Uh,
it.
no, yeah, I mean you're definitely wrong in that. I think I don't know the Miley Cyrus Liam Hemsworth thing. To be honest, though, I'm actually kind of disappointed because when Miley was this wild child, right? Then all of a sudden, when she and Liam were about to get married, she like calmed down a lot. And they got married, and I thought, oh, maybe because of the marriage, and then they were gonna, whatever. And anyway, I think it just highlights how inherently difficult marriage is. Right, that I found out recently, I think, I don't know if this stats are true, so don't quote me on that, but that like 50% of marriages, of first time marriages end up in divorce. Then like 60% of second time marriages end up in divorce. And then like 70% of third time marriages end up in
Hmm.
divorce. So like
Hmm.
funny enough, the more you get married, like the worse you get at it, I guess.
Right.
Which kind of just blew me away. That that wasn't the opposite. That like you didn't really learn from your first one. And
Right.
that like the moment you got married did not increase the chances of success
Hmm.
of marriage, which then makes me think that it actually is a personality thing and how
Hmm.
good of a person you actually are. So I guess the kind of person that keeps getting divorced and getting married is just not a good marriage material. But yeah, I just think that's all that there is to learn from that. Yeah, marriages are hard. They're
Uh-huh.
difficult. Takes a lot of work, and especially for celebrities who are in a kind of career that is inherently selfish and narcissistic, it's kind of hard to be focused on someone else enough to make it work.
For sure. Thanks for that. What were you thinking, Kelly?
Well, my thing was looking at them like they got married in December and end of December, so end of the year, and already in August they announced like their divorce. So since divorce don't have like overnight, like this is something that's probably been brewing for like a couple of months now. If they just
Hmm.
announced it now, and so thinking about that is just like, how long were they actually happy for? or were there any red flags before they got married that were there that they probably just avoided and didn't listen to, or they felt like they were so far down like the rabbit hole that they might was like, oh, we might as well go through with it and just take a gamble on it. Because yeah, if you're already like thinking about divorce that early on, like you guys had to have some serious issues. That's,
Right.
yeah, that's pretty much like a annulment, because annulment is like 6 months or less. So depending on actually when they got the divorce or when they filed for it, they could actually qualify for like an annulment, like it never happened. So I definitely think, yeah, people are gonna definitely be curious on what went wrong. Like Donald said, like she did calm down a lot for Liam. She even like said in an interview, she was like, "Oh yeah, I was doing all these drugs and everything, and then Liam came into my life. He saved me." But I guess Liam wasn't listening to J. Cole when he said, "Don't save him." She don't want to be
Right.
saved. Don't save him.
Right.
I don't know, because it ended up didn't working out. So I guess J. Cole's right. Uh,
Right.
don't save.
Right.
Oh, but really though, like, uh,
What was that, Donna?
no, it's enough for real.
Right. Yeah, and my thing is, yeah, just like just to piggyback off what you guys said, yeah, the marriage is hard, right? I mean, it's an internal thing where you have to look inside yourself, and ultimately, what I found is that when you think it's all on me, and you have to make it work, otherwise, if you're just like pointing fingers the entire time, then you're just doomed to not have a great marriage, right? It's like, oh well, this person doesn't do this enough, or they don't do this enough. So I think ultimately, you have to look in the mirror and say, you know what? I mean, there was like a honeymoon phase. There's a reason why you married this person. Just make it work, and hopefully you two can grow together. But looking at it and saying, you know, I'm the leader, and hopefully they follow suit, right? And I've found that when I've done that, not to say that my wife isn't doing much, but the thing is, like, I'm sure she feels the same way, right? And there's times when I look at it as a game of basketball, like it's like a Shaq and Kobe relationship. There's gonna be times when Shaq is just dominating the game and I'm just a supporting cast, but then there's gonna be times when Shaq is off and then I come in as Kobe, and then I'm just the one who's on fire, right? And then we just off like if one of us is off, then the other one offsets them being off. And then there's times when both of you are on, both of you are off, but for the most part, it's gonna be one of three of the four as opposed to both of you being completely off. So but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to speculate as to their relationship. Other than, yeah, yeah, marriage is hard, and we just gotta make the most of what we have. And I mean, I don't think divorce is ever really an option unless it's like there's like physical abuse, maybe even verbal, right? And then it's like if someone's not really
I
gonna
think
work it out. Go ahead.
man.
Go
I
ahead.
think divorce. I think divorce should be the first option.
When
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 you
what?
ever, when you ever think there's anything possibly wrong, I think,
Really?
yeah, dude. I think when like you start out, dude. Like, I think our generation is just so much more different than any other generation before, and
Sure,
just
I
the
agree.
options we have, just Tinder alone or Plenty of Fish or all those other apps, the access to people, it changes our reality. Right?
Uh-huh.
There really is someone better out there. Like, it just is, right? And well, not better. I try to take that back. There is someone that can be you can be more compatible with,
Yeah. I don't
right?
like that
And
word, dude. Because the thing is, like, I feel like any marriage can work. I remember when Oprah had this woman on her, I think she was Amish. She had this lady on her show, and she mentioned how, yeah, at first I wasn't like even attracted to the guy. Like, I wasn't romantically attracted or anything to the guy. But now we have 10 kids, expecting my 11th. And ultimately, it was our faith that brought us together. And I think ultimately, people have to have like a North Star that they reference, so whether it's be religion or just whatever it is, I mean, I find that it's religion for my wife and I, but it could be, I mean, whatever, like your overarching value that you have that brings you together, you have to be working towards it. Or I'm sure you two and or probably many others have heard of the love triangle, right? Both of you are opposite ends, but then you have that North Star that both of you are working towards, and as you're working towards it together, then you're ultimately coming together. But
and
yeah,
then
go
no
ahead.
your compatibility, right? Like in the end,
Hmm.
you have like so if and
What
that's
about
what.
what about opposites attract? Remember you hear that too, right? Right? I mean, there's people. Uh huh.
No, but that's so when I say compatible, because opposites do attract. Because usually you value in people the things you desire in yourself.
Mhm.
But then you can both be opposite personalities, but still have the same goals and desires.
Right.
Right? And to me, I think that's the most important part in that you, if if you and your spouse do not care about the same things, it's not gonna work.
Right. That's
You,
what I'm saying. That's what I'm
yeah,
saying, dude. Like, yeah, you have to have a
that's
North
a
Star,
compatible
right?
thing.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a compatible thing. That like
Mm-hmm.
if you get married to somebody and in 6 months you find out that you don't care about the same things,
Mm-hmm.
you can't make them care and they can't make you care. There is like no point in trying to make that work. You might
Mm-hmm.
as well just like find someone that cares about what you care about. And the
What's
sooner you
tough?
do that, the better,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion.
Right. And what's tough though, Donald, and I'm interested in what you're thinking, Kelly, but what happens is that none of us stay the same over the years, right? Like, I mean, I have friends that have gone through divorce, and initially, everybody goes through that honeymoon phase where they love each other and they can do no wrong. Then all of a sudden, it's like, wait, this person. Anyways, I'm not gonna go. This person does this, or any little thing that this person does annoys the other individual. But that's just little tiny things you can get over, right? And you just okay, I'm just accept that they do this or that they don't do this. It's not a big deal. But what happens is some people would like, let's say, oh yeah, I'm not religious anymore, or I don't care about finances anymore. I don't care about traveling or whatever it is that both of you initially had the same, I guess, interest, but then that person has lost that interest or the interest in that interest, if that makes sense. And I find that that happens a lot, right? Because you
Mhm.
just grow, and you're going separate ways. But I feel like you can still make those work, and that's why, again, in my opinion, save a verbal or physical abuse. Like, I feel like you can make any marriage work. I think you have to just say like, okay, well, you agree. I mean, if we can agree to disagree, but ultimately we got together for this reason, and we just can make it work another way, right? I don't know. I mean, if Shaq and Kobe can make it work for as long as they did, anybody can make it work. Donald is my
Yeah,
thing. Anyways, what was
it,
that?
yeah, it didn't work. They ended up leaving. And Kobe snitched on Shaq.
Yeah, it
Right.
is a
Like,
snitch.
different finishes at a different time. But I do think that that's like, like I think, and that's what we choose to disagree in that. I don't think, like, I think life is too short to force yourself through a ton of years of struggle to make it
Hmm.
work for somebody, just
Hmm.
because I've been taught that that is the basis of a stable unit, right?
Hmm.
Again,
Hmm.
I quoted a stat that made it clear that, and the reason, by the way, Jeff, too, that I think people should get divorced earlier, the most important reason that it happens before they have kids.
Mm.
When
Yeah.
you divorce before you have kids, it's pretty much a clean slate. There is
Hmm.
there is no fallout. The worst is when you stay together, even though there are problems, you have kids, and then you leave.
Hmm.
Then you brought a bunch of innocent human beings into this mess you've made,
Hmm.
and on all the trauma and all the you know, the maladaptive behaviors that they can develop through, a choice that you make, right? And so if in 6 months you're like, hey, we ain't feeling this, go your separate ways, pretend it never happened, and like literally, I do not see how there's a negative effect of that,
Sure.
So I think that's just my opinion on that. I think the sooner the better in divorce, the sooner the better.
The sooner the better. Okay. Donald and Mr. Meko, everybody.
Quote me, quote me on that.
No,
Okay,
from a
Kelly, go
legal
for it.
standpoint, the sooner is the better. To be honest,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
from a
Yeah.
legal
Oh, I
standpoint.
mean, this is our aspiring lawyers here. Talk to us, Kelly. Why do you say that?
One a lot more messier when like when you get kids, it makes it a lot more difficult. But the more property and stuff you acquire together, the more you guys affect each other's credit when you're together. The more other people problems can burden you, and so like the sooner is the better because the more longer you're with someone, the more intertwined your lives become. That's when bank accounts become shared. Because some people wait a while before they share bank accounts. And so the longer you're with together, the more intertwined your lives become and the harder it is to detangle. So it definitely is.
Mm.
Divorce, the better, sooner the better. But a lot of people like to work things out because a lot of people have made it through tough times. So I understand people like sticking it out and
Mm-hmm.
growing and overcoming their challenges. So some people can do it,
And
Yeah.
and it's funny because
but to take a risk.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's funny because I don't want to belabor because we really gotta wrap this up. But
Mm-hmm.
even like the word sticking it out, yeah, like that kind of bugs me because like why do you want to stick anything out in this life? You
Yeah.
should achieve your highest potential. So your marriage should be a vehicle for that. If the two of you are not able to like achieve your highest potential together, but then you spend your marriage just trying to make it work, I mean, you kind of wasted your life when you could have been with somebody who was able to complement your weaknesses. You could complement theirs, and together you guys could build something great. Instead, you spent it just trying to like not get divorced from somebody else. I, you
Yeah.
know,
No, that's definitely true. I dated someone who was in a marriage for too long and it definitely had a greater effect on her. Probably should have
Yeah.
way earlier than.
Right. And then there's the abuse thing again, right? But
Right.
there's that. So, and again, I want to be very clear, at least from my perspective. We're not marriage people like I guess certified marriage therapists or
yeah,
advisors or
disclaimer.
anything. Right, right, right. Because I don't want anybody coming after either of us, especially Donald, because Donald's I feel like digging himself in the hole. Anyways, I want to be very clear about that. So my thing is again, save verbal or physical abuse. I don't think you should, but at the same time, I think if you can make it through it, I mean, because I know my parents made it through that. I mean, I know other people who when they look back on it, it's like, you know what, we made through it, and they made us that much the better for it. Okay, so everyone is a case by case situation, but I think that would be a good discuss at another time. But I
Yeah.
think we'll just wrap up with that. But did any either of you have anything to add before we wrapped up?
Nope.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Well, if nothing else, thanks everybody for tuning in to another rendition of Plugged In, and hope you have a great rest of your week. And we'll get back with you next week.
See ya.
It's